If you are currently leveling up your Django skills with this tutorial, just to let you know, this tutorial is part of a free YouTube playlist, Django Database Structural Testing, where we learn how to set up and utilize PyTest for database structural testing within Django projects. If you like this tutorial and playlist, then also check out our Django Database ORM Mastery course on Udemy. The link to the course and playlist should be found in the video description. Next up, we're going to be verifying the correctness of default values for relevant columns. Again, like the previous test, this might seem quite trivial, but default values are a powerful feature in database management, ensuring data integrity, simplifying application logic, and potentially optimizing performance. They enforce business rules, so they provide a fallback for missing data and support the maintenance and evolution of a database schema. So by leveraging data or default values, developers can create more robust, reliable and efficient database management systems. And it just seems such a basic, simplistic feature on the surface. But once you start to, like with anything, start to scale your database, these small details really are going to potentially make quite a large difference. So ultimately, ensuring that they are correctly defined within our model and they remain that way throughout the lifespan of our database is going to be critical. So let's build a test to ensure that our model has been correctly defined. Now, if we take a look at our design, we can see that I think there is going to be one default value. So DV here, you can see it says DV, default value, and that's going to be false. So we just have one field which has a default value, and that's the isActive field. Like with the other tests, we utilize the parameterization approach so that we can utilize this test on other fields which may have multiple default fields. Now we only have the one, so we're going to need model, field name, and this time expected default. I'm just trying to make sure the naming is consistent throughout. I may have made a few changes here and there. I do apologize if that's the case, but it's always good to try and build a consistency within your naming conventions. Right, so this is expected default. We have one field, which is active field, and that's going to have a default value of false. So let's create our test function. So the naming is going to be as per normal. Test model. It's a model test, structural test, so structure. And let's call this default values. Okay, so we're going to pass in model, field name, and expected default. And then as per normal, we're going to need to just get the field from the model. Obviously, we're passing in the field name and the model name. So we grab the field, in this case just the isActive field. Now we need to test or check that the field is or has been set correctly. So it should be set to having a default value of false. Now you might like to build an assertion to check if the field has a default attribute to begin with. That might be something you might like to do, or else we can just simply go ahead and check if the default value matches the expected value. So we can get the default value, grab that first, and then use it in the insert if you like. So that's going to be field.default. Okay, so that's how we're going to grab the default value. And now we can build our assertion. So assert, and now default value should be equal to the expected default. Or I suppose we should have called that expected default value. Maybe that's a little bit more descriptive. Makes it easier for us to read. So let's go ahead and test that out. So it looks like we have one failed test. Now, why does it fail? So we have an error type, bool object is not callable. So let's take a look at this error and see where the error occurs, it looks like on this line here, default value. So potentially how we are trying to call and grab the data from the field is incorrect. The reason why we are having difficulties here is because we've used these parentheses to indicate potentially that we are calling or trying to return the value as a result of a function call. So we're expecting there to be some sort of function within this field, which would then determine the default value, which isn't the case in this case. So it's more likely the case that in this model, the default value is a static value. Now, in some cases, we may need to utilize a function call to determine a default value, but generally, Django ORM handles default values for fields automatically. So when you define a model field with a default value in Django, the ORM takes care of whether that default is a callable or static value. So let's remove the parentheses and just go for field.default. Let's try run the test again, and now the test has passed. Now what you can do is a little bit of a sanity check. So let's go for true. So we'll change the expected value of the isActive field to true. Let's try to see if that fails. It does. So it looks like it's working correctly.